right. What's happening today, coaches? So real quick, let me make sure this is set up right before I get going. All right, that looks to be good. Real quick, I got a message over social media. A guy wanted to talk about Flexbone offense, things that stop it, what makes it tick, accessory plays, etc. I will say I'm not an expert on Flexbone, but I do know enough about it, having come across it a few different times in the past, attacking it, defending it, using it as an offense. Um, it's a great offense, especially at the high school level, because it's got a variety of types of plays that cause defenses to have to go from assignment football to, um, basically reading keys and things like that. So it's compared to a lot of the other offensive schemes they're going to see, especially the run game. It's a slightly different teaching as a defense to be able to defend it well. And I want to get into some things philosophically, Flexbone wise, to try to make it, I guess, to give greater understanding of what it is and what it is not. Okay, so what it is, it's a great running offense with the option to have some vertical threats from time to time. What I've found is the successful offenses I've come across that run this stuff, a lot of times they're very run-heavy teams, and then they'll hit you late or kind of as they lull you to sleep with the deep play action shots. Okay, it's difficult to stop if your defense is not disciplined with what they're doing. And realistically, I think that's where this offense attacks the most effectively is player discipline of the opposition, right? So, all right, let's get into it. This is like your traditional, what people would call Flexbone set, okay? And there's other formations where you can get a tight end in, or you can flip the receiver over, things like that. But this is the base of it, okay? This is what most Flexbone teams I've ever seen. This is one of their staple formations, okay? These types of formations have been around for a while. Some people call this the run and shoot. Some people call this Flexbone. In the NFL, it's kind of come into prevalence a little bit, at least variations of it, and then with some modern wrinkles on it, especially recently, like the Rams and stuff, Sean McVay, those guys. A little bit with the 49ers with the stuff they've done with wide zone. So, anyways, getting back to this formation, some people call this Flexbone, some people call this wing tee, some people call this slot tee. What it is essentially is double slot, okay? Any way you cut the cake on this, bread and butter for this is probably first and foremost the dive, right? Or some type of interior run gap play with this fullback sitting right here. And I'll change colors as I start drawing here. That way we'll just go red for that stuff. All right. And I apologize. It's the first time I've used this drawing app, so it's going to be a little slow. So philosophically, most of these offenses that have this, they're going to set it up off a triple option. Okay, and it's going to all start with midline. What is the midline play? Midline is basically this guy's right down the tail pad of the center. This guy's in motion. You get the triple option. Step back, right? You got that, okay? Great offense. Okay, now, when they start with the midline as their base play, okay, if they don't have midline, it's going to be probably some variation of veer, right? Inside or outside veer, depending on how they run it. But the way they build it is, first and foremost, they're going to put their most physical runner at that fullback position, or a lot of people call it, I'm trying to remember, is it the A-back or the B-back? I'm not real familiar with the terminology, but you Flexbone guys know what I'm talking about, okay? Whoever that central running back is there in the backfield directly behind the quarterback. So that's basically the base play of that, okay? As a defensive coordinator, the teams that I've come across, everything revolved around stopping the dive, okay? And what I was more focused on defense was dive was A and B gaps, okay? Anybody that was responsible for A and B gaps, regardless of front, regardless of linebacker presence count, regardless of that, A and B gaps were responsible for dive. They had to shut that down all game long, okay? And all week long I was preaching that. And how I got them to basically get off their bread and butter play, because the running back that they had at this position was their fastest and most physical kid. Sorry, I had to get a drink there. Voice getting a little sore. Long day. So, this kid was the most lethal threat. Those interior gaps were the primary focus. We had to take him away. Okay, and how are we going to do that? Depends if you're 3 front, 4 front, 5 front. Some of these guys get on like a goal line set and just play man on the vertical threats. Whatever works, okay? Primary thing is, as a defense, what you're focused on with triple option football is A and B gaps are dive, C gaps are quarterback, okay? And your D gap guys, these are your forced pitch players, okay? Now, what I found is it's not, if you focus on it, it's not hard to take away the dive often based on the way you play your block rec. If you do a post-snap front change, alignment, etc., some type of stunt or D-line movement or stem, right? You can take away those A and B gaps pretty simply. The thing that usually people were getting gashed with, especially back when these offenses were really popular back in the day, was the quarterback to pitch relationship. Okay, that's when you'd see these big gains pop off. Or if they were really bad at stopping dive, every once in a while you'd get a puncture play where that dive just gets vertical quick and nasty, and it just pops through and then it's gone. Okay, so if you control dive and you get that ball starting to go this way, let me get back to a reasonable color here. Okay, you get that dive and you isolate this and create your wall, and you get that play to start going this way, away from the middle. Now you've got a chance for your defensive pursuit angles to start kicking in, okay? Also, the teams that I've seen have a lot of success shutting down triple option teams, A, are great with block destruction on the perimeter, B, are great tackling teams, and C, oftentimes, and this might be the most important part of this, they'll have a tertiary or secondary defender responsible for quarterback to pitch man. Ideally, it's a safety, right? That can kind of play from quarterback to pitch and just play through it like that with a primary. So you have a primary guy and a secondary guy that can help with both. Okay, those are the teams that I've seen do this best. Now we've got a whole bunch of colors here. You know, it looks like some type of art class or whatnot. I'm not trying to get to that point, but as we're talking through this, I want you guys to understand defensively what I looked at when I had to stop this offense. Okay, the exterior receiving threats out here on the edge. These guys were pretty good, but they weren't the primary focus of this offense. The primary focus was this fullback. The quarterback could run, and then these guys were also just blazingly fast. So it was these 3 backs going either way. And that's what causes defensive problems sometimes. Like these nickel defenses nowadays, with they're used to setting a spur to a strength and things, you almost have to adjust for these balanced formations. And there's a couple different ways to do that. I mean, you can set the spur back in like an eagle nest alignment. I call it snake check, but kind of like the Don Brown Viper stuff. But you can set them back there and then key off of which way the fullback goes and then start playing formation that way. You can cross key backs. There's a lot of different things you can do with the linebackers and backfield to be able to defend this offense. But the main concepts we talked about was that A and B gap control up front for the dive, C gap control for quarterback players, and D gap force pitch players. Okay, if you can get that extra defender over the top to help quarterback to pitch, that's all bonus. So I recommend 2 high if you can do it. If you can't, or you're a single high team, this guy playing the middle of the field better be a dude, and he better be ready to come down like a snot rocket and knock whoever's coming that way down. And he's got to come now. I mean, a lot of times these offenses, if they're going to go deep, you can almost get away with a cornerback man-to-man, or playing them soft and playing like an invert cover 2 deep half type thing, so that you can get this free safety down in the box quicker, because this is the heart of this offense. You have to stop what's in that circle there. Okay, if you don't, you're going to be in for a long night. And a lot of times they're okay with just playing physical up front, getting 3-4 yards a pop. So you have to understand the type of framework and game you're in. Okay. Now, modern offenses in the NFL, things like that, what they've done is they'll take this guy and they'll move him out here. They'll do enter and exit motions, things like that, and then they'll get their wide zone game going. Okay. That's difficult to stop. If you're playing a Flexbone team that runs wide zone in addition to the triple option stuff and some of the gap scheme things that Flexbone does, whoo, buddy, you're in for a long night as a D coordinator. Okay. That's kind of getting into like the LA Rams world, all right? You start getting these in and out motions, the jet-looking things, the eye candy, right? And then you start getting into heavy play action on deep crossing routes, deep post routes, things like that. That's when this offense it's very deadly. It's at its best. You'll also, with these flexbone formations, you'll get these things where these receivers, they won't be out there, they'll line up tight, okay? Why do they do that? A lot of times it's so that they can get that vertical stem to run like a deep corner route, or they get the post, okay? It's more difficult to defend a receiver that's snugged up because he's got multiple options of where he's going to go on his vertical stems, okay? If he's playing out here, right, if he tries to run a fade ball, you can funnel him into the sideline and kind of control what he does, right? So he's basically got to run a post or a deep in or something like that, or straight vertical. Okay, and I apologize for the drawing. My mouse to marker skills ain't tremendous here, but you see what I'm saying. So if they're in tight, you know, you've got all these out routes, you got the corner route, you've got the stop, you've got the comeback, you've got post, you've got just your receiving route tree that you have to defend is more difficult, I think, when they're snugged up. And Saban talks about this a little bit with his divider rules, about when you get close receivers, when they get tight, you play them wide. When they get wide, you play them inside. Why? Because you're basically controlling the leverage that you're allowing them to have. So if you're playing them wide, they try to break out, you're already theoretically superior to them based off the leverage. Then it's just a matter about playing your shoulder technique as a DB. Okay? So a little bit of variation stuff. So let's talk about a few different fronts that I've used personally that will control this offense. But the thing you have to understand as a D coordinator, and the thing you have to understand as an offensive play caller in the Flexbone offense is the defense dictates what plays you have. Okay, and that's based upon, are they post-snap moving? What gaps are they taking away is what's going to be my primary read key. Because in a triple option offense, this guy right here, this quarterback, if you can force his decisions to be sped up and make them be, I would say, basically rushed or flustered, or to the point where he's not able to make a calm, clear, concise decision. He has to make a pressured decision. You're putting pressure in that quarterback's head. That's when triple option becomes a fumble fest, okay? Or if it's in a rain, soupy game and there's just not good ball control there. Triple option is a dangerous offense for self-destruction in that regard, okay? And as a DC, I understood that. And what I would try to do is oftentimes attack that read and force it quickly and pressure that quarterback to rush his read so that he has to, like that, and try to force a mistake, okay? That's when you get negative plays, and ultimately takeaways win the game, right? So let's go over front number one here. The first time I went up against this offense, I ran a 4-2-5, okay? And I'll be honest, it was a split field deal. I kind of used Coach Mac's template a little bit, but I also went back to some of my roots with 4-4 stuff to defend this. And what I did was, because this kid was their dude, he ran like a 4-4 or 4-3-40, a very physical runner, etc. What we ended up doing is we played 2 eyes to take away that dive, that midline dive, and to force the veer. And then we ran 2 5s to complement that, okay? And 30 technique linebackers. Corners, we played them pressed up at about 3.5, 4 yards, something like that. I'm trying to remember, it's been a while now. And then our safeties, we had Will, Sam. We were essentially playing a 4-4 from a 4-2-5. And what we told the free safety was, because we were a 2-high split field team, we would play, we basically played a lot of quarters, or we played 2 invert sky. So what we would do is we would just tell that free safety, whichever way this motion went, we would have the linebacker creep a step, the Mike creep a step, and that free safety creep a step. And now he's basically in where he was aligned for his quarters alignment. And he was going to key this number 2. Let me see if I can get a better. He was going to key number 2 here on a vertical release. If 2 went out, he doubled 1. If 2 went vertical, he took him man-to-man. Okay? Now, why did we do this? Why did we shuffle, why did we get all 3 of these guys moving at the same time? 1, leverage. 2, to get him moving because of the speed of this pitch back. He was very fast, and he was faster than the dudes that we had at the time. But also to get numbers to the point of attack that we needed. So these guys were just going to play these A gaps as hard and as low as they could. They were going to take away that dive with everything they had. Okay. Because of the way triple option, the team that we were playing was blocked, they were playing basically this wedge type alignment, except for the guy they were keying. So in this case, they were going to key that end, and they were going to try to run veer. The reason we moved these linebackers was to change the angle on the tackle so that he couldn't reach it, and that he would basically, hopefully, whiff, and we would get this buck coming over the top. I'm sorry for the colors here. It's getting, I know, a little bit confusing. I'm trying to make it easy on y'all. So basically, when they would get this midline, or I'm sorry, it was veer, not midline. We would get this veer, right, and off the edge, and then he would come around the edge like that. What we were trying to basically do is we did not want the ball in this fullback's hands, and we knew that from the beginning of the game. We were going to try to take that away. Now, we played this team that we played, they were, I think, 3 years in a row, went at least 2 rounds deep in the playoffs. As a triple option team. They were two divisions bigger than us in terms of football size. They had about double our roster, and honestly, just almost in every way, depth, size, speed, almost every way were superior to us. And I said, okay, if I'm going to lose the game as a DC, which way am I going to lose? And as a Flexbone guy, you have to understand, if you're running this offense, DCs are going to have to think like this because of how dangerous the offense is. If they don't, and they just give you base static looks, you're going to have a good night. You can run whatever your, pre-check audibles are with the quarterback. He rocks up, he sees a 3 technique, I'm running midline. If he sees a 2, an A-gap defender, I'm going to run veer. Basic stuff like that. He can do that all night. We said, we're not going to let this fullback have the ball, and we're going to use our biggest, most physical dudes to take him away all night long. So what we did is, off of this down block that we were getting from the tackle, because he would basically veer release inside. Okay, he would try to get up and get on that linebacker. We knew that if we took this D lineman and squeezed, and that A gap there and that A gap there, in combination with this guy playing dive, we had 3 guys to the front side to take away dive, plus his backside A. So if he was going to cut back, he would have to hit a brick wall and then cut all the way back to what would have been a B gap being squeezed down. He would have had to bounce it all the way back to the C gap, which this guy's unblocked at that point, right? So we knew that. So what we basically said was, the dive guy's not getting the ball, okay? And we took him. He did not have a good game from us. The guys that killed us was the pitch, the quarterback, and then the play action, okay? Which defensively, from a schematic standpoint, that was what I wanted. Now, at halftime, we were down 21-13 on a much superior team. We had a chance in the game. We ran out of gas, conditioning, depth, all those things come into play. And quite honestly, they just were the better team that night. They ended up beating us, I think, 48-13 the first time I played a triple option team. But their stud, did not have a good night. Okay, mild success on my part in that regard. I took that as a small dub. Okay, so we've obviously got our right. This guy would now turn into quarterback player. Okay, this guy would be quarterback to pitch player, and this guy was pitch player all the way. Okay, now the only time this would change, because sometimes they did have a blocking variation, and this is where Flexbone can get tricky. They did have a blocking variation where the tackle would base block the Leo, or our end there, and then they would insert the wing. Okay, and this made it a little bit of a challenge for us, because when they did that, and then they just wanted to basically like ISO, okay, that made it a bit difficult, because now what we've got is we had to teach this safety, and they didn't do this very often to us that night, but this is one of the complementary blocking schemes you can have for Flexbone. What that had to teach this guy was he had to basically key this guy, so that if he ever went in, he had to fold into the run fit, right? Otherwise, we had this guy coming downhill against a fullback blazing with steam. We want vice tackles when we had smaller bodies going against the fullback that they had. So that was a little bit of a variation that would have gave us problems that they did not use much. What am I doing here? There we go. Okay. That if you're a Flexbone guy, could be effective down the road for you. So that night we took away their dive. This guy would have been pitch. this guy is quarterback, and this guy is playing both. Okay, now you've got 3 for 2, and then you've got 3 for 1 to take away that fullback. That was a successful scheme. Okay, that's coming out of 4-2-5/4-4 single high principle. If you were going to run this from a from a 2 high, and you were just dead set, I have to play quarters, I have to play palms, I have to play some type of cover 2, and you are not going to get out of that 2 high, and you're going to run it with the spur. What we had to do, and this was something that I had adjusted to after that game, is we said, all right, spur, you're going to play back here in the nest because he's one of our most athletic players. He's going to key whatever side the fullback goes to. Whatever side he goes to, he's going to scrape over the top, first open window. Should come clean. He was backed off a yard, and then just come screaming downhill to the side that he needed to go. Then we would play our traditional, look, what does this look like? It looks like a 4-3. Okay, that's one variation to it. Now, the thing you have to understand is when you take away the A-gaps, you're really trying to take away midline. If they're not a good midline team, or they're not a good dive or wedge or whatever, some type of tight zone, if they're not a good A-gap team, what I recommend, because triple option is so lethal on the edges at times, is change this whole blueprint up. If they are more of a perimeter threat team, if they're a wide zone style flexbone, etc., what I recommend, or if they're really spacing you out, trying to cause you problems, this is something that I kind of picked up off of listening to some of Gary Patterson's old install film stuff, but go double 3 techniques on them, okay, and then pinch through the guard, and then pinch like this. And what this allows you to do is, these guys are anticipating getting a clean release. When you collision that and flatten it out, you collision that and flatten it out, now you've got a 3-man vice where your linebackers can just olay it. Okay, so these guys theoretically from 3 techniques should be able to squeeze down to the dive, and let's say you've got that same 2 high look here. Okay, when these guys squeeze in, right, if this guy folds in, he's got that gap. This guy scrapes in, he's got that gap. Even if this fullback keeps nosing, you're still gapped up, right? And now you've got this guy folding down on the banana. You've got what you want in terms of putting a catch net around the football. That's if they're not an A-gap team, okay? If they're a big, say they're trying to hit the perimeter, maybe they're a jet sweep team, or like a jet G, etc., rocket toss, whatever, okay? That's where this front's helpful, by shoring up your perimeter. Why? Because it's hard to get leverage on you, right? And it protects your linebackers to flow over the top of your linemen, essentially covering up the B and C gaps. So let's say they like to run, let's just say jet G or something, right? They want to block down. I'm sorry, I need to make these colors a little better, just so the video is a little bit better quality. So they want to block down on these guys like that. They want to run the jet G. They're going to try, let's say this guy's going to lead around the horn, get just a tiny motion, and then get him going full speed like that, and try to get that, okay? That's a tough play to stop, right? But let's look at it from a defense standpoint. This is going 4 down. I'll get into 3 down and odd stack here in just a minute. So if you guys are already bored at this point, that's fine. Just skip ahead in the video a few minutes and you'll see. But this guy's going to hunker down, try to fight that. He's going to feel the reach and try to fight that. Now what you've got is you've got scrape. Fullback's going this way. Scrape and scrape. You've got a free hitter. And this guy's your cutback. This guy's your boot counter reverse, right? Quarterback, boot counter reverse, right? And you've got 2 for that, and you've got everything else covered up. Boom. Okay. So you see how that fits up. It's a key teaching point when you're playing from 2 high, how you want to do that. If you want to sling the safeties, and what I mean by that, this is a little bit different style. If you want to sling the safeties and he plays the center field, right, and you're basically rolling to cover 3 on the fly, or if you're going to banana fit for the boot counter reverse stuff. I personally like the banana fit. I think it stops run plays better, but that's just me. And I think it takes air out of the linebacker window better than this here, right? And you start getting that. Now you get a potential opportunity. They try to cut back. That's just how I feel. That's just me, because you've got this air on the backside of the play. Any of you guys that have been part of high school football long enough, and you see defenses, kids get tired in the fourth quarter. They do all kinds of crazy things with their pursuit angles. Their discipline sometimes breaks down. I mean, as a coach, you do your best to instill that so that they're not taking bad angles, that they're not putting air in their run fits and things. But sometimes it just breaks down, okay? The more things that you can build in to take that away, I think is pivotal success, okay? So that talks about some of this stuff. So the primary fit that I knew, like I said, I talked about with the original Flexbone thing, was they were a midline team. We took that dive away so that even when they checked out of midline to go to veer, we knew that, okay, they're still not going to give the ball to the fullback. We took the fullback basically completely out of that game. I think he had, I'd have to look at the tape, but I would say he probably had 30 yards rushing all night, and he was their best runner, okay? But they still beat us 48-13. That's just how good of a team they were. So that's kind of something like, as a DC and as an offensive coordinator, you're going to have to think about is defenses are going to try to take away what you do best. So what's your protection pieces? What's your next steps to that, right? If I was the OC, okay, and they gave me that look where I've got 2 A-gap defenders and C-gap defenders, okay, and I know that they're wanting to spill that end hard, what I'm going to do is I'm going to influence that, and then I'm going to try to play off of it, right? So you get this down pin, right? You get the G-toss type style, right? Or you get the belly sweep style where he comes around the end and you get a crack on it. Now you've got that wing back playing on a corner. That's pretty deadly play, okay? If you guys study wing T belly sweep, that's why the belly sweep with no motion, especially out of the variation of this where you've got a tight end instead of a wide receiver. So let's say this guy's out of the picture, and let's say we go tight end and wing. Let's say there's a tight end in there, okay? When you can go a couple different ways here, but let's say we want to go to the split side for the belly sweep. Okay, if they're giving you A gap, C gap, C gap, right? And then you've got these backers here, like this, corner, safety. Let's just say they're in like that 4-3 style look, okay? You get that, along with that, you get the pull, the pin, the loop around, and the no motion. This quarterback's going to ride the belly and then hand it off and then boot. This kid comes around late on that sweep. What you've essentially done is you've got this all suckered up, and then you're asking the safety to take on a guard in space and go make a tackle, right? That's where that plays lethal, and you're getting that influence from that end, which I probably need to color a different color so it's a little easier to see. You get that influence off the down block on that end where he's trying to flatten and down, squeeze down to take away that interior, right? You've taken triple option, combine it with gap scheme to where that assignment style football thinking from the DC is going to bite him, okay? And what he's probably going to do, if you're a team that does that, he's probably going to try to flood the gaps with a heavier front, which is actually probably better for you in the long run because now your play action deep shots are open and your lost my train of thought there. Your deep shots are open and your perimeter run game is going to be more open if he tries to flood the box. Okay, so basics of that, right? Let's just talk about plays. You've got midline. I'll just put ML for midline. You've got veer. You've got rocket toss. What is rocket toss? So what rocket toss is, it's a pretty good play, but what I've seen it basically do is this kid will go in motion, go backwards, he goes this way, and then these guys are trying to reach, okay? And what you're hoping to do is a lot of times the reason they'll run this play, at least my understanding of it, like I said, I'm not a Flexbone expert, but I'm familiar enough with it that I can explain this. My understanding is they're trying to get teams that really key the fullback messed up there and get them cheating a step, and then get this whole like, okay, now we're out angled, and now this kid's got the edge because now he's got a running start. So that's the rocket toss play. You've got dive, A lot of teams will run a trap play or a variation of it. It's good versus the odd a lot of times, as long as they're not a block wreck odd front. And then that's kind of the basic traditional old school Flexbone stuff. Okay, now there is counter option, which I'll just leave that as CO for counter option, which basically is this kid starts to go back this way and then he twirls back. Okay, this kid, I'm trying to remember exactly how they do that. I think he goes this way, he opens to that, flips his hips, and then comes back, and then they've got the triple option, or the double option with the lead blocker coming back this way. Okay, that's the counter option play. All right, I want to say Georgia Southern, Georgia Tech. If you get bored, look them up. You'll know what I'm talking about. Counter option or twirl option. That was a difficult play, and that was actually the team that we went against that night. That's what they went to. They didn't really run dive. They didn't try to run trap. We basically took, because of their fullback being their guy, we basically took the midline dive away. We took the veer dive away. So then it turned into basically perimeter stuff, and our guys were athletic enough on the edge to hold up, at least for that first half. They basically ran this here and that the whole night. That was their check two once we took away their main two triple option plays. Okay, that's the basics of it. Now, here's what I recommend. Okay, and I'm going to put this down here in blue so that you guys understand. This is what I recommend as your complementary plays for a Flexbone offense. Because of being on the other side of the ball and seeing it, this is the plays I'm going to add down here at the bottom. This is just my recommendation. You take it with a grain of salt, draw it up on the board, see how it works with some of your different formations, if it's going to be something that's useful or not. I recommend, as your complement from this base, okay, if you want to stick with the same base, I recommend this. Wide zone. Wide zone is just a good football play, especially if you get the line coached up right. It is a stretch, and then once they start flowing, you puncture back based on each defender's gap that you read where they're playing on the offensive line. Great play. Highly recommend you look it up, okay? I would also recommend wedge, just a good old-fashioned wedge. That basically says, I don't care if you got two guys in the A-gap, we're going to run them over with four between the guards, the center, and the fullback. And as long as your offensive line is lower, faster, and plays more technically sound and more physical than those two guys in the A-gap, theoretically you can still get yards out of it and get your fullback involved. So wedge, okay, and then lastly I would say the belly sweep play. And if you guys aren't really familiar with that, wing T guys, please school them up on the belly sweep. But it's basically the down series. If you're a Tubby Raymond guy from the old wing T, down was strong side, belly was weak side, okay? I call it the same thing because it essentially is the same thing where you ride the fullback in, especially on a team that's keying the fullback hard, ride that gut hard, pull it out, and then hand it off to the end around. Okay? Why? Why is that play so effective? It sucks these backers up, and then all of a sudden you've played a game, some type of read block, where if this guy goes in, he pins him. If this guy goes out, he fans him, and the guy cuts off of that. Basically putting like a duo cut in there. You crack the safety if it's too high, right? All that good stuff, or block the corner if it's one high. You do that, that's a very deadly play to complement with that triple option because of the things we talked about just a little bit ago, where you've taken away their ability to play assignment football. Okay, those three plays I recommend add at least one, if not all three of them in there. Okay, if you run a midline veer and then you run wide zone wedge and belly sweep, I mean it's 5 plays, and that is extremely difficult for an offense to handle, or a defense to try to prepare for with the way that it hits. Okay, and then lastly, if I was going to add maybe one more, I would say jet G or G toss. And they essentially play the same. They're a quick play side hitting play with a play side pull. Jet G / G toss. Those are my recommendations as far as an offensive for play calls. Okay, kind of talked about some of the methodology and why. We covered the 4-man front. Now I'd like to show you some of the 3-man fronts that you might see, especially with this modern nickel stuff. Some of the things that I've come up with, my own personal toolbox. And there's a variety of options you can use, right? You don't have to use the things I'm using. These are just examples, and hopefully, for the purpose of this video, with the social media coach that reached out to me, maybe hopefully this helps out some other coaches as well. But anyway, talk about odd fronts, okay? Let's just go everybody's vanilla favorite flavor of the month right now. You've got the mint or tight front, okay? You got 0, 4 eyes. You got backer, 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 and say you're playing corner. Let's just say they're playing too high, just for simplicity's sake. A lot of teams, when you get it like this, they'll roll a safety down to the field, right, and play field defense, try to force you into the boundary, etc. Now, let's go back to that original line of thinking where if you're a Flexbone team and your base play is midline. Midline kind of gets good from this, okay? Why? Well, you don't have 2 A-gap players, at least right away. Unless these linebackers are absolute freaking studs at flying up and stuffing a guard on the run and preventing any type of vertical crease off of the play side. Unless they're a stud like that and they can knock the guard off path that hard, if they can, that might be a problem, okay? And there's 2 different types of kind of fits that I'm going to be familiar with that a 3-4 is going to run if you're trying to be a midline team. So let's just draw up to midline real quick so you can see what I'm talking about. Running midline right down the crack of the center, right? Quarterback's going to get off the midline and then go. Motion around. All right, so they're going to read the first thing outside of the A-gap to the play side, okay? What's his blocking scheme going to look like? They're going to hammer down on that nose and try to blast him in here. They're going to wedge up and really hope to take that linebacker out of the play and hope to scoop backside. I'm going to take you through the 2 schools of thought from a 3-4 standpoint, how this would work, okay? Safeties, you're going to, well, the safeties are a whole other conversation for this, but let's just talk the box firstly, okay? You're going to see one of 2 things. You're going to see this guy try to slow play the quarterback to the pitch because he's an end, and this guy fill hard. Or you're going to see this guy pressure key the guard. As soon as he sees down, he's going to squeeze the dive and hope that he can take away the A-gap in time. Why is this midline going to be a good play versus this type of read and squeeze end? Okay, unless he's flying down in right off the snap. If he's an actual read and then squeeze type guy, what's going to happen is you're going to have this little vertical crease here because this guy's going to be taught, I got to play C-gap, which is going to be quarterback to pitch. I got pitch, quarterback to pitch, okay? So the reason that is now you've got this stovepipe right in the middle of a 2-high defense unless they do something with the safeties and they sling them down based off of that pre-snap motion, which is difficult to do because we're talking half a second at best with the way that most of these Flexbone teams run. So unless they see this, he starts cheating down in, he starts slinging down like that. Okay, but still you're talking 5 yards before you stop a fullback, and this is probably your most lethal runner, right? Not the best scenario. So in this case, what I recommend, okay, is a 3-4 defense because of this particular play, okay, you've basically got to have it so that this guy's crashing either on the snap, especially against these triple option teams, where he's just crashing hard on the snap and he's trying to attack basically inside the mesh point to take away this dive. What you want the dive to do is brick wall, stop, stone wall, and now you've got a chance off of that bubble. Now he gets a little bit more help. That's what I recommend, and then have him scrape over like that. If you're going to play it the other way, and this guy's going to slow play, and this guy's going to hard off of the guard, that's fine. The thing you got to realize is now you've opened up the stovepipe. If he does bounce or spin out of this, now the pipe is here, and your big guy has ran away, and there's no help because this guy's probably going to hit traffic. This guy's going to be late to the party. And if he's coming down this way to play quarterback to pitch, he's not worried about dive. He's probably not even looking at it. So you've got this pipe in between the 2 safeties with the cutback. That's a problem. Okay. So 4 eyes. I don't love them versus triple option teams. Okay. I've seen people do it. I understand why they do it. I think if you're going to do it, you have to sling the safeties down into the fit like that and get into basically an over leveraged, like an old school 5-3, etc. Right? Um, that's the way I recommend if you're going to play that with 4 eyes. Now, you can also, I've seen a lot of teams, they'll run outside veer on this, okay? And I'm not an outside veer expert. I don't want to talk about it very long just because, honestly, I'm not an expert in that subject matter. In my career, I have not faced a lot of outside veer specialists, okay? But inside veer, my understanding is midline, crack of the center. Inside veer, you're running at the tail pad of the guard. Outside veer, you're running at the inside leg of the tackle. That's my understanding of it, okay? It's a little bit of a wider drop, and you're still going to read this guy first. Let me make sure that's right. No. I'm pretty sure you'd read that guy first, but it'd be more against the 50 front, okay? And then that'd be your secondary read, okay? This guy's probably going to crack up on that, and that's how that would work. Not an outside veer guy. Basically, the veer release, or what a lot of teams will talk about with veer, you'll have either that or you'll have this guy arc and then run that, okay? And you're hoping to influence, right? You're hoping if he plays out to play box, now you've got this and this, and you've got 3 options on 2 like that, okay? That's essentially what the veer is trying to do. So we talked a little bit about 3-4, why midline would open up. A lot of times, especially with the old 50 fronts, the 4 eyes, zeros and 4 eyes, if that nose isn't able to hold up against a hard double team, or if this guy posts team and this guy caves the hip down into that linebacker, if he's not able to hold up and they're able to just run right up the crack of that center, it's a long night for everybody. Because a lot of times this guy's trying to run sideways, he's making a 90-degree tackle. Okay, that's not a good angle for him, especially with the head of steam on a tough running back. And then once he breaks this tackle here and he keeps going to that safety, now you've got a head of steam with your best back on a safety who's probably not the team's best tackler. That's where that pops off. You'll hear old 50 guys be like, you got to stop the dive. You got to take away the dive, right? That's where Flexbone's deadly against odd front. Okay, now, what a lot of teams started doing to take away option, triple option stuff is they would change from zeros and 4 eyes to zeros and 5s. And I'm going to show you why. It's basically that same concept that we talked about from the 40, where let's say you got your nose, you got your end, say he's in a tight 5, end and a tight 5. You got your backer, and your backer, they're probably playing like somewhere between 30 and 40 eye techniques. Backer. Now you have maximally leveraged your front. This is dangerous versus the dive if you don't have good run keys, basically, okay? So, let's talk the same play. Let's say you want to run midline at you, because they know that's huge bubbles inside. And some guys that are odd front guys will not do this just because they're terrified of the B gap bubbles. And I understand, it is frightening at first if you don't run your box the way that I'm about to show. So, let's say they want to run midline. Boob, boob, boob. Let's say this guy wants to fan. He wants to isolate up on there. Oh, that's not a midline release. He goes right up the crack of the center. Option around, off the midline and around. Okay, let's say they want to do that. How do you protect against that, right? Because now you've just got nobody there. So what the defense has to do if you're going to run zeros and 5s, and this is the only way I've ever seen this front be successful at stopping this run play. When he gets an out or a base block, right, where he tries to base him, he's going to try to post in on that inside B gap. Okay, that's going to give you some presence in there. It's not going to be great, but if he posts it, he might be able to fall off and at least control his B gap at the line of scrimmage for a minimal gain. This guy is keying this guard's release. He gets hard down in. He's going to scream at the mesh point. Okay? Why? Because as this guy comes up to block him, he's essentially going to spill it. So now we've got this gap taken away and the gap that the inserted slot was trying to create. Okay, this guy's got to just hold up. If he can get somewhere, he's going to play the front or back of that. You've got the scoop, the squeeze. Okay, and off of that motion, you've got him coming in the middle, him coming down. You've got quarterback to pitch, or depending how you want to play it, if he's a pure pitch player like this, okay, and then you've got this safety here. Hang on, my drawing's getting messed up here. So realistically, if they're going to play it this way, this guy's probably going to be the pitch player. This guy's going to be quarterback to pitch. This guy's going to be quarterback to pitch as well. Okay, that's the way most of that's going to happen off of that option look. And he's going to obviously be here late, but it's better than nothing. So that's the way that you have to play with zeros and fives, is if you get with basically this tandem effect between the end and the middle linebacker, we're based off of this key. If he fans out, this guy hunches into that inside shoulder hard, and then it's going to be based upon this. So if he gets a double fan, right, you've already taken the B gap away, this guy squeezes inside like that, right? If he gets a down block, a hard down block, he's attacking that mesh point and screaming to it, okay? And that's how you take away what looks like it's something that should be there, because realistically what's going to happen? He's got this, he's got this. Let me change colors so you can see these gaps being controlled. What am I doing? There we go. Sorry. Like I said, new drawing tool, still getting used to it. So he blocks out, he blocks down, say they scoop, okay? And this guy's trying to insert up on the backer. Now we'll change the colors to show you what the defense is doing. So if that defense hunches, he spills it, he's got that A gap. This guy is going to squeeze and take away the B gap. He gets that double veer look, hammering down inside, trying to spill over the top of this. So even if they move this center out, or this nose out of the way, now he's back in the window so that that midline is still stopped. You've theoretically got the two backers, even if the nose don't hold up, which he needs to be a good enough dude to hold up where he's not being blasted to the opposite side B gap, but it's tough depending on the type of double team he's going to get and the type of kid you got, okay? So if you've got that, basically what you've got is A gap, B gap, B gap, bonus player, okay? Essentially what you're turning that into on the snap. Then you've got backside perimeter, alley runner, force, quarterback to force, okay? So that's essentially what you're going to get on the run. Now, if the stimulus response changes, okay, let's say they're a dive team, right? They want to run that zone dive or whatever they want to call it. It's essentially they're just playing a side of the man, okay? So let's go back to this blue. Say they want to fan out, come up and fan out. They're just going to take him wherever he wants to go. Fan out, the zone dive, okay? Let's say these guys, they're just going to try to get up on the safeties, whatever, and they're just going to say, this guy's going to make a cut based off of what he's doing. He's just going to hand it off. This is a little bit trickier. However, it's still protected because what I'm about to show you. And it all has to do with the way those ends and linebackers play. He controls it in, hunches in. This guy spills. That way, whatever way this nose goes, there's still, theoretically, a guy in the hole. Now, something that's going to help you with your run fits out of too high, these safeties keying their primary run pass key and man line of scrimmage. You get a base block out, he bananas down in. Base block out, bananas down in. Now you've got support players able to flex in or out to either side. You've got bonus players sitting there in the nest. Okay? That's why you have to fit it this way. Because look, once this guy flies uphill and he's no longer there, you've got A gap, B gap, controlling the center, A gap, B gap, essentially the C gap overhangs, right? Okay. I know this is looking almost like a Spider-Man cartoon or whatnot with all this red and blue, but you guys see how that zeros and 5 front holds up a little better versus some of the options that the Flexbone has by playing that wide. Now let's get in some odd stack. I know some of you guys have been waiting a while for that. So let's just say we'll go head up, zeros and 4s, odd stack. true 3-3 stack. A 3-3 stack oftentimes struggles against triple option unless they do a couple of things correctly. And we'll talk about those here in just a second. Safety, safety, corner, corner, free safety. Alright, let's just say this is old school, like the West Virginia style odd 3-3 stack. One second, I need another drink. We'll go right back to that midline. Okay. Same deal, moving the nose out of the way. This guy could probably almost take this guy wherever he wants. Or no, I'm sorry, they're going to read that guy. So let's say they veer release it. Read him. So they arc this guy and then key that guy on the tandem. Okay. Let's say they want to try something like that and they're going to try to scoop this guy. Scoop this guy. If you're a lag front team, it's a problem. Okay, because what's going to happen is this guy's going to get moved. This guy's going to be off the ball. And now you've got your death by 1,000 cuts on dive. Same odd front problem right here in this lane. And unless your free safety's an absolute freaking dude, that's a problem. Now what I seen, this was a few years ago, I believe it was Minster High School. They were small high school. They played it was basically essentially a triple option team. Cuyahoga Heights, it was like 2017 state championship. This was in Ohio. What I seen them do, and this was something I thought was a clever solution to fix this, is they essentially just played, I don't remember if it was a rule to the field or what, but they just took this free safety, put him in the hole, moved the linebacker, and put him in the other hole. And they played like this little like double bubble right here out of the odd stack. It's a weird look, right? It's a little bit different the way they played it, but because the way they did it, that wasn't a problem anymore. They shut that, I wouldn't say shut them down, but compared to as explosive as that team was, where they were built similar out of that Flexbone look, that fullback was probably their best runner, and he's very physical. They kind of really tamed that down quite a bit from what it would have normally been by doing that. Okay. Right, you've obviously, if you got your veer stuff and you're good at veer, you can run that. The issue with single high, okay, versus these triple option teams is if this guy isn't an absolute dude or he's not getting nosy in the run fit, and what I mean is, I think Georgia, Kirby Smart called it a cheat technique. You get down about 10 to 12 yards from a single high look instead of being back at about 15, like 12 to 15. If you're removed from the fit completely, this offense is going to cause you fits. Unless you're doing something with the linebackers off of the motion, right? So, because you're essentially losing your bonus player, right? So, if this guy is way back here, like out of the edge of the screen, right, it's going to be a problem because you're playing 8 on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You're playing 8-man front on 9-man football, right? Because the quarterback is the equalizer there. That's a problem. It's a numbers problem, let alone everything else. So, and this guy's really got to be good at playing the alley off of the force to either side, running that triangle, and being able to make 45-degree angle tackles in the open field at full speed. If he's not, you're going to have a long day. So, yeah, anyway, that's my recommendations, right? The reason I elected, and I'll explain this a little bit, the reason I elected to play press, because of the types of routes we were seeing from that team that I was talking about earlier. When they would run like a burst corner where they stem in, go deep, and then branch back out, playing man coverage on leverage like that kind of leveraged them from being able to stem in and funnel them out to the sideline. Kind of took that away, them being able to break open at the last second on those. And also, by allowing our corners to stay in phase, it took away some of the hitches and things. And I can show you a clip real quick. I'll bring it up, actually. What those press corners were able to do because of the way that they're aligned. We actually got a pick out of it, and we weren't even trying just because of the way that they're playing it. So it wasn't necessarily designed that way because the coverage window was tight. The kid just played the ball at the last second and robbed the guy, basically. So where's this at? Let me see. Just a second, guys. Sorry, I know it's been a long video. Stay with me just a second, and I'll show you what I'm talking about, why I played a 3-yard, basically press bail, and what it was able to do for us. So let me find, where's it at? I think it's this first clip. Where is it at? Is this the one? Yeah, okay. So this is what we're talking about. We had to, I don't remember if we're playing 2 eyes in this particular look, or if it was it looks like a 2 eye and a 3, which is fine. But you can see playing 3 yards off the guy, 3 yards off the guy, what it does off of this basically cover 6 quarters. It took away it basically played one-on-one, because they didn't throw these guys a ton. They were athletic, but I felt like our guys could handle it. Okay, they run that motion. This time they tried to run basically like a play action snag off of their rocket toss look. Okay, and because we've got this guy manned up, the quarterback's thinking it's like cover 3, right? So he's thinking this guy's bailing, right, off of the vertical stem, but it's man coverage. So when he hitches up for the snag and they try to run the flag out of number 2, the 7 cut out of the number 2 receiver, it's basically a curl, a 7 cut, and then they had the flare off of the motion, okay? This quarterback's probably reading properly, but he didn't realize it was man coverage. He sees the corner sink, right? So he's thinking the corner's dropping at first, so he's thinking the flag is taken away. We've got it bracketed with the free safety in the corner. He's thinking that's done. But because it's man and he's locked on, he throws it to this curl, and we jump right in front of it last second. Okay. Now this guy's rule, being that it was quarters, it would have been 2 to the flat, 2 to the flat, 2 to the flat, 2 on the wheel, or first to the flat. Okay. First thing delivers him to the flat, which was the back in this case. Okay. That guy goes vertical. We take him. He was locked onto that. Now, his rule was, if this guy doesn't, if the first thing to flat doesn't rip vertical, his rule was to sink under 1. So he tries to do that, and this quarterback's thinking, oh, I got this window, it's a good throw, and then it's just gone last second. And it looks like a bastard coverage. It basically is. We're playing man on the corners, and then we're playing zone on the rest. Okay. I called that, I'm trying to remember, I think it was Field G Meg. I want to say it's Field G Blue Meg. And that was just telling the corners they're playing man everywhere he goes. Okay. So, anyway, short clip on that, talking about why we played basically manned up on these guys. Because we felt like they weren't dominant enough that if we just played man on them, it took away their plays, and then we could worry about really just stuffing the run. Philosophically, coaches, I mean, you're going to have to choose what you want to live and die with the triple option. If you're the play caller, the offensive guy, the coach that originally asked this video, and you're running Flexbone, okay, the best thing I can recommend to you is identify what they're doing with their box and with their front. What is their foundation, right? What are they trying to do out of that, okay? And figure out how they're playing your dive, okay? Once you figure that out, it's going to answer a lot of questions as far as what plays are available to you. Let me clear this out right quick. The other thing I can recommend to you, if you're the Flexbone offensive guy, okay, start playing with surfaces. Too many guys want to get locked in this one formation football. Nothing wrong with getting good at what you do. And if you're calling the right plays at the right times out of a single formation, sometimes it'll work. But some things that sometimes give D coordinators fits, okay? These are simple little adjustments. This here, right? Just going over, right? Let's say, what's another one that we could run? We could run the nasty slot, okay? And then say we go over, right, with the, in this. Another one would be, we got tight end, wing, okay? You've got quarterback, fullback. You run another wing back here, okay, and then say you run this out here, right? Does that look like a traditional Flexbone set? No. But you get your motion across, influence, boom, boom. Now you've got an RPO off of it, where this kid can bubble, and now he's still back in the pitch phase, right? You've got all that stuff, right, along with the motion. You can do a lot of things off of this, especially coming out of that triple option world. It's also really good. You've created extra gaps. They're used to controlling A, B, and C gaps, possibly D, right, with an overhang. Well, now you've created E gap, F gap, A, B, C, D, E, F. That's a problem for a defensive coordinator to figure out how the hell do I want to handle that. Okay? Stuff like that. Changing up looks a little bit. Another way you can do this is, and depending on how spread you want to go, because a lot of guys that want to run Flexbone run it from under center. If you're trying to go spread, okay, you can still run your base offense. It's just slightly different in how you backfield mesh it. And the thing I recommend where this gets in trouble is too many guys that go spread get parts of the spread, but they don't understand what they're trying to run in the run game, and they end up having delays, which end up in shed blocks. And it's all a thing of basically quarterback depth and timing. Okay, so let's say you're wanting to run true spread. Let's say this quarterback's, I recommend being at 4 to 4.5. Okay, 4/4.5 for the quarterback. Okay, you can even get the pistol if you wanted at about 3.5. That's fine. But the reason I say this is now you get into your motion, jets across. Now you've got all your read game stuff. Okay. I'm trying to think how else this would go. Basically, this is like the Urban Meyer style of triple option, running it off of bubble RPOs and smoke RPOs and stuff. Now, how you do this, because a lot of guys that run Flexbone, they're not understanding of the perimeter game. Some of you do, some of you don't. That's fine. What I recommend is if you've got a hard rolled up corner, don't try to throw a bubble in a rolled up cover 2 corner. He's already got it leveraged and he's already right there in its face. If you've got a hard rolled up corner, run smoke instead. And what I mean by smoke is this guy comes out, fans him, he takes a step, and then comes back underneath. It's a pick play, right? But the timing's much better, and it's better for the leverage. Then he works, hash numbers sideline. And basically what you do a lot of times out of the gun when you're doing this is you're inverting your options. So if you're trying to run midline read out of the gun with this, the quarterback is actually going to be your midline runner. This guy's essentially going to be almost like your quarterback out of your original midline, and then the RPO threat is your pitch phase, right? You can also do it where let's say we turn it almost into like that belly sweep theory off of the midline base, okay? So this guy's going to jet across underneath. He's going to jab, get downhill, and then you can read somebody off of the median here, and now you've still got your pitch phase out here with this guy, and you've got people in space, right? So your read's right there on the end. Okay, you can still run that. Let me see if I can get this. I'm sorry, if it was actually true midline, you'd be reading an interior guy anyway, but you get my point, right? The way that you can get your triple option game, so that's the thing you have to ask yourself too. Are you a Flexbone system static roots guy, or are you a triple option guy? Because triple option and Flexbone can be one and the same, but also separate, right? You can run spread and triple option. You can run wing T and triple option, right? Those are things to kind of look at, right? Now, a lot of the Flexbone guys, what they get into nowadays, they'll run these wide splits. You get maybe a squeeze down, maybe set like this. You get this, you get the deep running back like the ace back. You get this motion across like that. You got your rocket going this way, and then you'll get a wide zone look going back this way. And it's really creating an issue for the linebackers on which way am I chasing the jet, or am I going to keep my reads and get over for the thing, right? And then a lot of times what they'll do is they'll drag this guy off, run him vertical, run him on the out, clear that out, and then they'll try to hit this off of the boot. You've got like the Yankee concept from the Rams. So that's kind of some modern variations of what Flexbone has become, or at least evolved to at the higher levels of the sport, the upper levels with the NFL type talent, NFL type players. yeah, I hope coaches. I hope this gives you some ideas. I hope this kind of shows you some fronts and defensively helps you understand kind of lines of thinking and modes of thinking. I would recommend if you're a flexbone guy and you're going to get a defensive line that is controlling all the interior gaps like a six-man front, and they're trying to cut your line, you really got to get outside on them somehow, formationally, play selection, etc. And you have to basically identify what their box is and how are they playing your dive. That's foundationally what I recommend if you're that flexbone triple option type style team. If you're more of a traditional pro style team out of that, like you want to run power, you want to run counter, but you're playing it out of flexbone formations, you're running ISO, things like that, or GT counter, things, that's all good and great. Maybe you're running like GT style read or something. There's a lot of ways you can play that, but I recommend figure out what your base is based upon your personnel out of those formations, and then just do the best you can to have protection pieces built in. You can never have enough bullets in the chamber, but I never recommend running things just to run it. If you're going to put something in, be great at it. Whatever your hang your hat is, be great at it. I mean, your offensive line down to the smallest detail has to be great at it, and they have to be able to do that in their sleep. And then whatever your protection pieces are, they have to be really good at those too, right? Adjustable blocking schemes that adapt to if-then scenarios and still handle it to get the job done based off your base play. I recommend that first. Make sure you have some protection pieces built in off of that, and then evolve from there, right? I gave you some list of some play recommendations, etc. Hopefully this helps. This is getting long enough. It's probably a little longer than I wanted to go, but that's okay. Hopefully this helps coaches, and I'll just ask if you can, like, share, and subscribe. Help me to reach more coaches out there. Uh, if you have any questions or further questions or things you want to talk about, if you ever just want to talk ball, I'm usually pretty open about that. Coach Nichols, CoachNichols 51 at gmail.com. Once again, Coach Nichols 51 at gmail.com. Feel free to reach out to me. I try to get back to anybody that has ever reached out to me. So, made a pretty cool community doing this. Excited to see where this thing goes. I didn't expect to have the amount of views or subscribers I did. I literally just love talking football and just started doing it in front of a camera one day. So, anyways, cheers, guys. God bless. Hopefully clinic season's going good, and best of luck to you here in 26.